of the Town Council to order at 5:30 in the council chambers with roll call, please.
Councilor Allegro.
Here.
Mayor Sakala.
Here.
Councilor Crissati.
Here.
Councilor Hall. Here. Councilor Mangini.
Here.
Councilor Matthews.
Here.
Councilor Pisner.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Santinella. Here. Councilor Thomas.
Here.
Councilor Ungary is absent. Councilor Zanoni.
Here.
10 members are present, 1 is absent.
Thank you. Item 2 on our agenda tonight is the Board of Education budget presentation. So we have the superintendent, Mr. Macchio, and board chair, Ms. Pickett. So take it away.
Perfect.
The floor is yours.
All right, I'm going to start, I guess. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm honored to be presenting this budget alongside our superintendent. I'd like to start by recognizing the tremendous work of our staff, who you see behind us, and others, our central office team, our school leaders, educators who contributed time, expertise, and care to the development of this plan. This budget was passed by the Board of Education with strong bipartisan support with an 8-1 vote. That level of support reflects thoughtful discussion, careful consideration, and a shared commitment to what's doing best for students, staff, and our community. The proposed budget prioritizes key supports for both students and staff while remaining grounded in a sustainable approach. Every investment is intentionally aligned to our district improvement plan, ensuring that we're advancing student achievement, strengthening instruction, and continuing to build a positive and supportive school environment. So we're going to walk you through some of the details and hope to continue this important conversation. Anything you'd like to add?
Is it on? Sure. Just the information that you received, just quickly going to walk you through that. You should have received a copy of the presentation in advance. And then the budget packet that you received, you have multiple levels or layers of the budget. If you want the highest level, start with the budget summary. That will just give you all of the object codes and what their totals are. You go down to the next level, and it's that same document, but I try to put together a little bit of, why did things change? So it has an explanation of variance. And then if you're really, the real budget is the object breakdown. It's the one with the colors and it has all the different lines to it. So you'll have all of that information as well as the FTE report, student enrollment report, and things of that nature. So the presentation will walk you through it, but all of that's included in your budget details.
Thank you. All right, so I think it's important that we start with our mission, which is here. No surprise, our mission's been our mission for a while. Just what I want to highlight for all of you is that this budget is really about all students, all of our students, our most vulnerable students, along with our high achievers. So thinking about how do we align our budget with this mission in mind and with our district improvement plan. It's important that we highlight our accomplishments. So there are many listed here. We have lots to be proud of. So even after lots of cuts, we are starting to rebuild, and we were able to see lots of accomplishments in the 24-25 school year. Some just to highlight for you all here, in the academic bucket, really looking at the achievements of students across our schools, along with our Apples Distinguished Schools. We are working to build technology into our schools. Student supports, expanding our special ed programming. You're going to see some additional information about that in this budget, along with some additional student support. So social workers, speech and language pathologists, and math interventionists at our JFK middle school level, which is really critical and important as we're building this multi-tiered system of support for students. Anything you want to add, Stephen, or?
I would just emphasize the under the student support slide, there is a lot of information in terms of that. We do maintain one of the lowest out of district placements across the state. Little over 2.5% of our students are actually outplaced, drastically below the state average. The second part of that is a number of the items that are listed in that student support were part of the budget process in terms of us looking at the targeted reinstatement for those supports. So you see things like the reinstated academic teams, that's current for this school year, but that was built in as part of our budget process for last year. And then really it's been the targeting of the added support staff that is necessary across the different districts.
So I did not build this budget. The team next to me and behind me did, but these were some priorities we had discussed as they were building the budget. These three main priorities drove how the budget was built. Again, really thinking of, we don't just repeat what we did last year, we truly build a budget every year. So first thing in mind was student offerings. How do we expand and continue to grow our academic and enrichment offerings for all students? How do we strengthen those core instruction and pathways? So thinking about our high school course offerings along down to our middle school, and then looking at our extracurricular, so thinking about ways that we can enhance learning. Second is student and staff supports. I want to emphasize both of that, the importance of not only supporting our students through emotional, mental health, and counseling services, and the MTSS work, that multi-tiered system of support work that we're doing around targeted intervention, but also investing in our staff, and how do we support our staff so they can best support our learners. And then thirdly, which I think is really important here, is sustainable funding. We all know the past. We're not going to keep going back there. But there are lessons learned in the audit and previous year's budgets. So how do we build a budget that we can sustain, maximizing grants and other funding sources that we have, prioritizing our resources to make sure we're meeting the needs of our students, and really prioritizing long-term funding options. Anything, Steve?
No, I think she's doing a great job of saying what I said to the Board of Ed. But it just really is, the priorities are the priorities because you can't have everything. So understanding that, we try to at least emphasize the three items, and certain things are going to definitely rise to the top. I'm not going to add a whole lot. Each one of these priorities will be broken down further in the presentation.
There's also assumptions that are made when a budget is made. So some things are out of our control. So I think it's important that we note some of those. We are in legislative session, so who knows what the legislative session will bring. So thinking along the lines of ECS funding and excess costs, those are all things that could shift, along with potentially magnet school tuition, although I'm hoping to see that we get continued support there. Also, just to keep in mind that our population does shift and change throughout the school year. So when you see like number one, we have special ed students who join our district throughout the school year. Those can shift our costs dramatically depending on the needs of a student. There are other pieces as well that do shift our costs. Steve, anything that I'm missing here?
No, I would just, the emphasis obviously isn't number one in terms of the costs associated with meeting student needs continue to rise. When we get into the enrollment slide, I have some updated figures for you in terms of the numbers of special education students who have qualified this year, the number of new IEPs that have actually moved into the district since the beginning of the year. Our numbers just continue to go up, and students are enrolling in the district, and they're not necessarily just your typical students. So they're students that do have a significant amount of need. The grant funding continuing to be utilized to supplement and support, you'll see, and I just note that because in the object breakdown, you will notice a lot of red lines. I tried to identify where the revenue streams are that are coming into the budget. Those are in there. Those are the anticipated. Those are not our entitlement grants because we know that those are going to be coming in. So you won't see one for like the Alliance grant, for example, but you will see ones for the other revenue lines like pre-K tuition, our open choice reimbursements and things of that nature. And lastly, in terms of the State Department and excess cost with the legislative session and things like that, I know Mr. Santinella and I know Ms. Hall are well aware of the testimony that I've sent in, so we will see what comes out of that. But, we put in a percentage that we anticipate in terms of excess cost. If we get greater than that amount, then, that's a benefit to the town, where hopefully you would never receive less than that. The two items that were not mentioned in terms of the unfunded mandates, and you may not think of it as an unfunded mandate, but it's curricular demands. So every time the legislature adds in additional courses that may or may not need to be graduation requirements but need to be offerings, those are demands that get placed on our curricular staff in terms of writing the curriculum. So that's It's not a large demand, but that is a demand that's to be considered. The one that I'm very interested in to see where it will be going is the homeschooling legislation. Because should that come through in some type of sense, if portfolios need to be addressed and things of that nature, that is going to be a significant impact on the district. We currently have approximately 176 students that are identified as homeschool. So should those requirements go in place, that's 176 portfolios that we have to address every year. That is going to require us to have some additional staff. But we are far from the end of session, so we will see where that goes. But those are just the pieces that come to my mind. Thank you.
Budget history, just a quick roadmap of where we came before we're sitting here in front of you tonight. I've had communication with the mayor all along, so you all have been aware of the timeline. We've had multiple Board of Ed meetings, presentations, public documents are available online. We did approve this budget on February 24th, so you have all the information you need, and now the road continues with all of you.
And you also have, as part of your materials, a spreadsheet that breaks down sort of this process in terms of just numbers. This gives you the big overview, but you can see where we started. I tried to include information in there that takes you all the way back to last time the town council appropriated funds. Then there was the a few additional appropriations, so that will spell it all out in terms of that spreadsheet. And that should bring us to the actual budget.
So here is our ask. We will walk you through kind of the changes and shifts that we've had here. But just so you're aware, you see our last year appropriation, our this year ask of 83.578-ish, a 4.97% increase. I'm going to pass it over to Steve because he knows all of these line items more than I do. It's lots of accounts. It's lots of work that goes into kind of each of these line items. You will see some variance, so I'll let him kind of give an overview of that.
Right. So there are a number of different accounts that go into this. For example, just to look at the salary account. You think the salary account's a single account. It's actually 24 different accounts that come into play there. The benefits account, there's 11 different accounts that are associated with that. You can continue to go on through. Really, we have a total of 550 different account lines that are made up as part of this budget. And I know it might seem severe, but we look at every single one of those. All 550 get reviewed. The adjustments, those were continually made throughout our process until we landed. The Board of Education approved this on the 24th, and it does include the appropriation of the $285,000. Those were changes as you look at the budget history from the 100s, which was the salary account, the 200s, and the 700s.
And I do just want to thank you for that mid-year appropriation. We use that sustainably to be able to do things like supplies and property and that nice music teacher. So hopefully it did bring those items down. You see like the change there, but it was sustainably planned for. So what drives our budget? Again, I'm going to pass it over to you, Steve, on this one.
So last year I gave you 10 drivers, but really when you get down past, well, honestly, when you get down past the top 5, everything is portions of percentages. So I broke it down in only to the top 8 budget drivers this year. I did include a line a chart on the far right for the notable line item increases. So you can have, what my suggestion would be if when you dig into this budget is to take that box there and go back to the object breakdown, and you'll be able to more easily determine where the variances are occurring. The top 8 drivers consist of 96.5% of the overall budget. Really, when you look at the 200 plus other individual accounts that make up the budget, they're only 3.51%. And you know, unlike many other businesses in the school system is considered a business, we are a people business. So the primary portion of our budget is going to be comprising salaries and benefits. You know, you can't educate kids unless you have bodies. So that is where the primary amount of our funding goes in terms of salary and benefits. Transportation-wise, 7.04% of our budget. We are in year 2 of 5 as part of our newly negotiated bus contract with Smith Bus. We were able to make some savings last year. I'm sure at the beginning of the year, many of you had heard about some of the transportation changes. They may have even impacted some family members or whatnot. But we did make significant shifts in our routing. Our buses, in terms of the percentage of being filled, are much greater than they were in previous years. I will tell you that there are more efficiencies to come. Just last week, we published our walk zones. So we're trying to have people have a greater understanding in terms of if you live on street X, you look it up on our map, it shows you whether you're a walker or whether you're a rider. You can see immediately whether or not you qualify for transportation. We're going to then follow that up with a transportation request form so that there are many parents, I was one of them. I drove my kids to school. Yes, I was one of those people in the line, but I dropped them off nice and early to high school. But I didn't need transportation. So there's a number of parents that fall into that arena. So if I can free up some additional spots on buses, if we can consolidate some more buses, then we're going to go ahead and do that. The buses will be there. They will be ready to be used. And because should somebody have a change and they do need transportation after that, we, of course, have to provide it. But there is some potential for some greater efficiencies with that. So that's going to be happening coming this spring. Outplacements, we do have an increased number of students that have required private settings. We do have a number of specialized programs from the pre-K level all the way up through our 18 to 21 plus program. Sometimes those specialized programs are just not enough to meet the needs of the individual students, so they are outplaced. So we do have some increasing numbers of those. Technology supplies, just to let you know what the majority of that is our Board of Education contribution back to the town of Enfield. So if you look at the object breakdown, we send back to the town about $808,000. That's because we have shared services with the IT department. So we will take care of all of the software that we are utilizing, but Mr. Russell and his crew take care of all of the networking and the infrastructure. So basically they bill us, we build it into our budget. Professional services for students, those are contracted services. Kelly Services is the company that we utilize for subs. Nursing services, that's again for substitute nurses that we may or may not need. A BCBA, that's a board certified behavior analyst. That's somebody who can work directly with the special education department. Our interpreter, increasing need for the use of the interpreter, as well as our audiologist. Tuition-wise, that's the 0.84% driver number 7. Those are the funds that we're required to send for students who are taking part in the VOTEC and AgSci programs. And then technology services, it's sort of hard, but the supplies is the one item that I talked about, but the services, that's where our software gets placed, as well as our HMH reading program. So those are the overall drivers that are associated with the budget. I take it I'm going.
I'll start it off, and then I'm going to pass it to you. I just want to highlight with what Steve shared. There's continuous discussion in central office around how can we find efficiencies. Transportation is definitely one that we're looking at, along with special ed programming. So I just want to highlight that work and commend the staff that are working on those pieces. Student enrollment. So I mentioned our mission is all students. I think it's really important that we have an accurate picture of who our students are and who are we servicing. This is as of October 1st, so the State Department takes this snapshot every October 1. It does shift, like I mentioned, throughout the school year, but I'm pretty proud of a few things. One is we have great enrollment in pre-K all the way through ETLA. As a district, I think we should be proud of the pre-K programming that we offer and the amount of students that we do serve through our pre-K offerings. Looking at our attendance rate, we are always looking to improve attendance, but not so bad there. And then thinking about who are our students. The bottom two boxes really look at the race and ethnicity of our students. We are a changing demographic in our community, and looking at students with potential additional service needs. The first is our multilingual learners. We're at almost 5% of our population are multilingual learners. We're at 22.3% of students with an IEP, and that does include our outplacements. We are also almost 51% free or reduced lunch. I don't like to always categorize that as students with additional service needs. Just because you might qualify for free or reduced lunch doesn't necessarily mean that you need additional services, but it does give you a picture of the needs of our students in our community. Steve, you have some updated enrollment data.
I do. So I did ask for some updated enrollment. So I can tell you, as of October 1, the total that we had here was 4,547. We went up, again, a whopping 14 students, but we're now at 4,561. That's as of today. I will tell you that's what's interesting to that is when I go in and I look at those numbers and I break them down even further, the amount of that we have coming in, there's just as many that are going out. We have a very transient population that's coming back and forth right now. As of today, since the beginning of the year, I promised I'd give you these, we have 102 new students to Enfield that have an IEP. So those are students that had previously qualified for special education services, already had the IEP written, the individualized education plan, and then transitioned into Enfield. We had 76 students that had an IEP that left the district. So if you put those two together, we're plus 26 in terms of IEP students, just for transferring in and transferring out. Since August 25, we have 89 students who, through the referral process, qualified for special education services. So these are students that went through our systems of support, received the interventions, went through their tier 1, 2, and 3, all the way up to, and then after testing, they did qualify. So again, 89 new students outside of those other numbers that I gave you that have qualified for special education services. In addition to that, we have 38 that are still in process. And in addition to that, we have 36 that are in process from birth to 3. So we do have the ability, Amy Dennis, Jacqueline Valley, and whatnot, at the pre-K level, have the ability to go into the state level and find out who's going to be coming into our schools through the birth to 3. So those are some significant numbers in terms of our continual rise in meeting our student need.
And I will piggyback. You'll see in some of our budget adjustments, we are taking that data and using it for program planning. So in our last Board of Ed, or maybe 2 Board of Ed meetings ago, we had our pre-K program come and talk about full-day kindergarten pre-K options, looking at the number of students coming in with IEPs and providing full-day preschool options for them. And so just some things to think about how we're creatively using this data to also think about our programs and services. This is our FTE report. This is for our proposed budget. We are at a total of 869.46. This is an increase from 855.75. I think it's really important that we think about sustainable and purposeful use of our staff. So we did take a drastic cut after the COVID funds disappeared, but now we are looking at how do we add staff in really meaningful, efficient, effective, and sustainable ways. I also appreciate that Mr. Macchio and the team added that we do use some creative funding for staff. So we do maximize the use of grant funding and our nutritional funding to support a lot of staffing that we do have. We're going to show you a year-to-year comparison next, but is there something you want to add here?
No, I was just going to say, if you go to the,
Perfect.
there you go. So I think this is a better picture in terms of what's happened over time. The middle section, so you basically you have 3 different small increases. You have the one from 2017 going through 2020. You had a drastic drop in 2020 to 21. That was COVID year, hybrid year. There was a number of folks that were not necessary because you only had half of the population coming into the buildings. And then really from 2020 to 21 through 23, 24, I'll just call that the ARP-ESSER years. So there was a significant increase in staffing that was completed through that process. I'm not going to go back. We know what happened. So that's where we were in 2024-25, and we've attempted to slowly rebuild up to the requested proposed 869. So I think it's about, for us, as I go through and I look at this, you know, I'm never going to come to you and tell you I need 1,030 people. I can tell you that I could definitely use more than 869, but I want you to notice I didn't even come in and ask for the 917. I didn't even ask for the 890 because we're trying to repurpose the staff that we have, looking at greater efficiencies between different roles and responsibilities that we have within the district, and really trying to better align a lot of the work that we're doing with our best practice and the research that's out there. And there's always been three words for me, sort of long-standing, purposeful, and sustainable. So small little incremental pieces here to try to get there is really what we're trying to show you through the yearly FTE.
All right, so now we're going to get into what are we asking for. So priority one, you saw earlier, is about student offerings. I think it's really important that we kind of walk through all 6 of these. Starting with number 1 is our reinstatement of the library media specialist at JFK. JFK recently went through the NEASC. Oh, perfect. Yeah, perfect. You know what? Yeah. Well, you'll see all the rationale, but we went through all of the NEASC accreditation programming, and really being able to have a library media specialist for our middle school students is critical. Looking at class size, we have lots of conversations at the board. We continuously talk to Steve about class size. There are some watch areas, so thinking about how can we keep student staff ratios low, so looking at adding some grade 5 staff, bringing back some PE teen leadership at JFK. That is a program that is well loved at the high school. We have seen some behavioral concerns at JFK, thinking about how do we build these skills. Our Portrait of a Learner work really does support this work as well. So thinking about supporting our teens there at JFK. Adding a math teacher at the high school. Again, that's about course offerings that we can provide. The RISE program at EHS, number 5, we had a board presentation on that. Happy to share that with all of you. But looking at how can we best support our students with special needs and IEPs, and building in some additional programming for them to be able to be at the high school and offer some more least restrictive environment opportunities for them. And then lastly, which I think will make some folks up there happy, we've had a lot of feedback from students at the high school around the Career Center. So we are looking at bringing that back in a little bit of a different fashion. So we will have a post-secondary and adult learning coordinator who will have multiple responsibilities, not just the Career Center, but also a Career Center specialist who will be available to students full-time. So with each of these priorities and asks, our team here has built this rationale for everything that we're asking for, a more detailed version of what I just shared to all of you. So you can kind of see that here. Steve, if you want to kind of walk through maybe what that coding on the right is and anything I missed.
Yeah, so you have a couple of different items there on the right. So one of the symbols is the NEASC symbol, New England Associations of Schools and Colleges. So the JFK Middle School recently went through their accreditation process. One of the items that they were dinged on was not having a library media specialist anymore. So to meet the recommendation there's a reinstatement of a position that was reduced as part of the 2024-25 budget. And sort of I have within the rationale of what that person would be looking to do. I also have in the dollar sign that's crossed out. So again, as I said to you at the slide previous, we are trying to repurpose some of the staff that we have. We are making some shifts in other areas within the building. So positions that were open, rather than filling those positions, we're shifting them and utilizing them to be able to fill in and bring back the library media specialist. The same thing will hold true when you look down at the RISE program. Standing for Respect, Independence, Support, Empowerment program. That's going to be a new special ed program at the high school. Want you to think about students that may have been school avoidance types of students that may have been already over at Eagle Academy, but really are not a behavioral issue or concern, but they're more of that school avoidance piece. We have students that are at Eagle Academy that have begun to transition back into the high school. They're already taking courses. So we look at, we're going to be building this new program in a section of the high school where those students will be able to more easily integrate back into the high school. The goal is for them to fully become inclusion back into the high school, but understanding that that is a difficult transition for them to make. So while we start with one class, maybe it's going to go to 2 and then 3 classes. You know, if we can eventually get them back full time, then wonderful. They'll assimilate right back into the full high school. But if not, they'll have that home base that is right there ready for them. The reason for the cost neutral is we're opening up spots at Eagle Academy because those folks are going to be coming out of there. And we also have districts that are interested in any additional slots that we can make available to them for them to have students that would pay tuition to go to Eagle Academy. We already have 1 or 2. We believe that we can increase that at least to a few more. The other ones, I'm pretty sure you answered well. I mean, the K-5 class sizes, I have a slide there for you. You have some different colorings there in terms of the green shadings, the purple shadings, and the orange shadings. So the green shadings, those were the proposed additional teachers. The purple shadings, when you build your class sizes, you always start with the staff that you have in the building. So I always tell the principals you have to settle your building first. So we have folks that are interested in moving from 4th grade down to 3rd grade, or we have bubble classes that maybe they were a really large 5th grade, but that 5th grade now goes on to 6th grade. Now you can reduce down a classroom in 5th grade and bring it to a different area. The principals settle their buildings first, and then we look at backfilling into those other positions. And the orange was an unfilled position from last budget season that we feel as though we're going to need to maintain for next year. And really, we're trying to make an emphasis at having those kindergarten classes stay at or around 20 is really where we'd like them to be. You know, could they be less than that? That would be wonderful and outstanding. But again, trying to be realistic, long-term, and sustainable.
I would just add, there was some, things that we're watching here. So grade 1 at ESS and grade 5 at Parkman are on the watch list. We have great communication with the board and Mr. Macchio that if there is a need to increase, we have that conversation and we ensure that students are adequately supported. And so thinking about class size is something that we are keeping a close eye on and definitely a priority for us.
And can you go back on?
Sure.
Thank you. I think when I sat downstairs with the town council last year, I was adamant over we're going to always strive to be under 25. I want to be under 25 in every single classroom. And then obviously when you get down to the younger levels, we want them to be even lower than that. As Amanda did mention, we do have one particular grade level that's on watch for me, so we will see what occurs with that. The other piece I just bring up, we can add additional teachers to lower class sizes. That's simple. The difficult part is meeting their contractual needs because every teacher needs to have their 40-minute prep period per day. At the elementary level, the way you receive your preparation period is when the students go off to specials, when they go off to music or they go off to art or they go off to PE. I do have a plan for sort of as we move forward, not in this budget, but hopefully for next year's budget, to be able to add specials in one area, library, for example, because we have no library media specialists at the elementary level. And when you're trying to teach kids how to read and build a love of reading, wouldn't it be nice to be able to bring them to the library? So that would be an opportunity for us to increase specials. At that point, when I have more specials available, I can then look at the potential of being able to reduce class sizes further.
Thank you for that. Important reminders. Our second priority was student and staff support. Again, thinking about how do we build both supports for our students and our staff. The first one here is through instructional coaches. I have sat up on the dais and as a parent and talked about the needs of our district are not going to be just met through special ed and through multi-tiered system of support. We have to adjust our core instruction, our tier 1, where all of our students are. So we are looking at bringing in evidence-based instructional coaching at our K-2 schools to start, hopefully to build on this and really focusing on good core instruction for our students and supporting our teachers with the increasing demands of curriculum, behavioral needs, all of those things, and supporting our staff with instructional strategies. The second is a special ed teacher for our adaptive learning program at JFK, again, ensuring that we have adequate special ed programming for our students and meeting the needs there. Our third is a teaching English to speakers of other languages, a TESOL teacher. So you saw in our data, we're at almost 5% multilingual learners. We really need to ensure that we are having adequate staffing to support those students and our staff and how to best meet the needs of those students.
Just in terms of the change in enrollment, over the course of the last few years, the district has gone from only having one school that was deemed as multi-language learning school to we now have 3 that qualify for that same piece. So it was last year we added a TESOL teacher, and yet the numbers continue to go up. And to meet the increasing need, we're going to need an additional. Their caseloads are large.
Thank you. We are also looking at bringing in an ed tech communication specialist to help with our communications work that we're doing at the district. We are looking at publicly posting our curriculum resources. We've got Parent Square of how we're communicating with families, really looking at building out our communication and engagement of our families with the work that we're doing. Number 5 is a social worker, splitting out between 2 of our elementary schools. We do have schools that do not have social work support in them. When we see increasing behavioral needs of our students, it's really important that we have adequate social emotional learning support there as well. And then number 6, summer secretarial days. Enrollment shifts over the summer. Having somebody on site being able to register students, get our schools ready is really important. I do want to add that number 1 was a hot button topic for the Board of Ed. Originally, it was proposed that we cut academic tutors to bring in our coaches. We had some conversations. We are keeping 2 academic tutors per primary building, so we are not losing that position completely with adding the coaches. We think kind of balancing, supporting our staff and supporting our students as we build out this coaching model was really important.
And I just want to echo on the summer secretarial days in terms of student and staff support. The way it was working for the limited time that I've been here that I've seen is basically the secretaries are off all summer. So if you're a new student who's coming into the district, you may register online, all the paperwork might get started and things of that nature, but you really don't get registered and you really don't get a schedule until about the week before school. So I try to, when I think about the folks that are coming into the district or out of the, you got to look at it as a customer service piece. You know, you don't want to have them wait and wait and wait. There's a lot of transition that can occur over the summer. So the secretarial days, there's going to be, a limited number of days that we're going to have them come in. We're trying to basically ask them to be available a couple days out of the week over the course of, the heightened summer. Understanding that they have vacations that they had already planned and things of that nature. We're going to be flexible. We're going to post. We'll be providing communications out. If they're unable to come in for the 2 days one week, well, then they're going to do 4 the next, or they might do 3 and 3 and 3. But we're going to have people there and available so that the families can transition a lot sooner than mid-August.
So I think we went through all of the rationale there for all of those, but just for your reference, you have this page in case you don't want to hear me speak about it again. Oops, my mic wasn't on, but hopefully you got that. And then priority 3, really looking at how do we sustain our funding. We don't want to see dips and waves. We don't want to have to make cuts in a couple years. So thinking about how do we plan sustainably and ensure that we are building a budget that we can maintain and hopefully increase over time, which I think is the important piece, over time, that long-term sustainable and proactive approach that Steve mentioned. So there's a few things that the district has been doing. Actually, I'm going to let you speak to this a little bit more, Steve, if that's all right with you.
Sure. So when I built this budget, one of the items, and it's in there is item number 2, reduced utilization of district and school activity accounts over the next 3 years. So our district activity account has been utilized to try to offset certain areas. We've been paying for certain things for athletics out of that account. That is not a large revenue account for us. I mean, we have some revenue there, but over the course of the next 3 years, I'm trying to work our way away from that. It's twofold, really. I want to reduce down the amount of money that we have in that student activity account, and that way we're shifting it and actually utilizing it for the students. But at the same time, I want to be able to reduce the possibility of having to cut things when and if those funds are completely removed. So, for example, And I'll just use the athletic account because I mentioned it already. So we charge all of our students an athletic participation fee. $100 per athlete. The individual, there's a maximum of $200 for the year. So if you're a 3-sport athlete, you only pay the $200. For a family, you may have 2, 3, 4 kids. You have a maximum contribution of $400. The costs for the different sports is staggering in terms of the spectrum. Think about what it takes to be a track and field runner. Think about what it takes to be on the football team. Think about what it takes to play ice hockey. So I asked our athletic director to give me a breakdown of each sport per cost of what it would be. Hockey is currently costs us $2,450 per athlete. We were charging the families $100 per athlete, but because you were a hockey player, we said you had to pay us an additional $500. We did some research. We looked around to surrounding areas, surrounding towns, districts that are similar to our DIRG, and we are going to be charging for next year. We're looking at a recommended increase over the course of the next 3 years. So next year's, rather than being $600, it's going to be $1,000. Year after that, rather than $1,000, it'll be $1,200. Year after that, instead of $1,200, it'll be $1,400. That last year brings them in alignment with our second most expensive sport. So it brings them into a similar alignment to football, and believe it or not, softball is one of our more expensive sports that we have to pay for. Interesting, but it's all about the numbers of athletes that you have, right? And the number of teams that you have and things of that nature. So we're looking at shifts that way. So I'm being less dependent on the district activity fund and sort of any of the revenue that's happening from the athletic participation fee to be able to sustain that over time. Twin Rinks is a wonderful place. It's great that it's right here in town, but they cut you no deals in terms of ice time. It's a very expensive sport, but it's wonderful, and we made it to the semifinals. So that's the type of stuff that we're looking at in terms of reducing the utilization of the district or school activity account. Technology is another one. I'm offsetting our technology replacement plan with the funds that we bring in as part of our insurance plan for the iPads. So we continually bring that money in. Over time, for many years, it has accumulated. It hasn't been used. I'm starting to use it, and I'm starting to draw it back down. There's going to come a point where there's none there anymore. As we replace our iPads as part of that plan, we've built in the revenue we get back, because every iPad every iPad that Carrie Wiley's team sends back, we actually get money back for. I want to say we sent back about 2,400 iPads as part of this first year. We received back about $200,000. So we're not talking about small dollars, but what I've been doing is trying to utilize that to then pay for a portion of the tech replacement plan, because every replacement plan is a 4-year 0% interest loan, which is nice of Apple to be able to do. We have no interest on our loan over 4 years. We have it built in a way that for 4 years, the iPads are planned for 5 years, but on that off year, it's about the other pieces of technology that we have that we will be able to replace. So again, everything is trying to be long-term and sustainable. Those are just 2 examples of that.
I'm going to start this one, and then I'm going to pass it to you. It's important to kind of see how we compare to other districts. You will see Enfield all the way on the right, close to the bottom there. I know there has been conversation on your dais up there about this number and what it includes and doesn't include. Thank you, Steve, and your team for including the boxes on the left. This is comparing apples to apples. So this does exclude our buildings and maintenance. So there's been conversation of oh, this isn't fair because we take care of the buildings. Nobody's number includes the buildings.
Capital costs.
Correct.
Capital costs for land.
So thinking of those pieces, that this is a comparison for districts, and you can see where we are. Anything else you'd like to add, Steve?
No, this is for your information type of piece. These are not numbers that drastically change from year to year. As I look at this is for 2025-26, as I look, or excuse me, 24-25, as I look at the numbers, if I was to recalculate them for 26-27, our number's probably going to change with the budget as we proposed and we spoke about this evening. It's probably going to change somewhere between $500 and $700 per pupil. So that's the change that you will see. The next slide, again, for comparison's sake, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I know last year we did a lot of comparisons to South Windsor. So it's interesting that South Windsor is 155th in terms of the state rank. We are considered 156. They beat us by a whopping $37. So they spend $37 more per student. It doesn't seem like a lot. Multiply it times the number of students they have in the district, and we'd be asking for about $180,000 more just to get us equivalent to the one above us. The other ones, again, those are just there for your comparison's sake. But not utilizing that and believing that that's going to be a drastic change, but when people start talking about net current expenditures per pupil or per pupil expenditures is usually the way that they would use it. I just want everybody to realize what's included as part of it, not included as part of it, and really it's based on your average membership. It's going to change from place to place.
And I would just add, when we think of South Windsor, a lot of their cost savings is they write their own curriculum, so they're able to add additional staff and not have to pay for curricular demand. So there is those adjustments that happen as well.
And they're nice enough to send us students that they get charged tuition for.
Perfect. Included in our budget is some overall understanding of our grants and revenue. I want to make it clear here that we are not budgeting on a promise or a hope or a wishful thinking. All of the grants that we have planned for here are grants that we know we are getting, so we are purposefully using them and sharing with you what we're getting, and the various revenue streams that we also get. Steve, anything you want to add there?
No, I would just say you have on the left-hand side here, you have the grants. Those are current year 25-26, because obviously we would be in the process of writing grants at the beginning of next year for 26-27. The right-hand column, the anticipated revenue, those are numbers that we do anticipate for next year. So based on the number of pre-K slots, based on our current population in terms of Medicaid reimbursements, what we've seen, based on that 70% excess cost reimbursement rate and the students that we currently have and the services that they are currently receiving, those are the items anticipated for 26-27. I always just like to put the bottom green box there because I think people don't truly understand what it costs to run an entire school district. So you have the requested appropriation that we're sending forward to the town council of $83,578,111.58. But then you have the anticipated grants and nutrition, as well as the anticipated revenue. And really, you're just under $100 million in order to run the district for 4,600 students, plus those that we send off to magnet in tech schools.
When Steve built this budget, I was like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we passed more than 1 year at a time so we could really think about what the future of our district looks like. You do see in the first two boxes here, our last year kind of successes, our this year anticipated programming that we're hoping to build in. And then the last box, which I think is important for you as a council to think about, is what are some future things that we're hoping to do? Again, our goal is to continue to rebuild some of that programming, keeping our class sizes down, working on that technology replacement plan, continuing the work with the transportation efficiencies. We are looking at increasing family engagement work. So how can we utilize some of the great strategies from Stowe Early Learning Center and support some of our schools with engaging families and supporting them in our district, bringing back library media specialists or elementary schools, minimizing that district activity offset that you heard Mr. Macchio talk about, and then again, this is connected to the pre-ref work that we're doing. So as we're reimagining our programming, thinking about what would this look like as we are building out this programming for our new pre-K 5 and Eagle Academy supports. So I think it's really important that we keep that forward vision moving forward. A couple just highlights that I want to make sure are clear, because I know I've gotten asked and I feel like we said it, but just in case we didn't. A huge success of this budget is that Career Center and bringing back teams at all levels at JFK. So it was at 6th grade this year. We are looking at bringing back teams at 7th and 8th grade as well with the staffing that we're bringing back. So now, Steve, anything you want to add as far as closing comments or remarks? We will hand it back to you, Mayor Sakala, and your dais.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'll speak for everybody, but thank you. We appreciate the presentation. And speaking for me, I appreciate both sort of, your shortened version and then the long detailed version that I know we all got. Again, we've had time to sit with this for at least several days. You passed this budget over a month ago, so all of us who have watched it have been able to sit with that budget for longer than we've just been looking at this. So with that said, I know that we may have additional questions, comments, concerns, whatnot in the future, but if anybody has any questions or anything, now is the time to ask. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much for coming. It's always good to see you. I want to start with the ask increase. The total ask increase is $3.960 million, correct? That's what this says. And so incorporated in that is a new teacher's contract, which we approved, I believe it was last November here, bipartisanly, right? And so of that 3.96 increase, how much of the increase is attributed directly to the contract that we agreed on for this year?
Yeah, the contract from past to next year, keeping everybody exactly the same, was I want to say it was about 12.6% over the 3 years. So you know what? If you give me 1 second, I will give you the exact number because I have it.
So I believe I've asked you this previously, and I think the number is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.4, 1.5.
Oh, when you look at it in terms of the budget itself?
In terms of the budget, the dollars that are associated.
Yeah, when you take away all of the extra people, when you take away the when you take away the additional staff that we're requesting and things of that nature, yes.
Okay, so about 1.5.
5%.
Is that fair? Okay, so factoring that out, so to speak, which we've already approved on the additional things that you're asking for are in theoretically less than apples to apples, right? Are theoretically $2.4 million for everything else. Right.
Yeah, I would a way to look at this as well as again.
I'm not trying. By the way, I'm not trying to pretend like $1.5 million is not existent, but there are things that we've agreed on, and we aren't able to cut the increase in salary elsewhere in the budget. It's totally incremental.
Correct.
Okay.
And I would just, and I didn't put this in the presentation, and possibly we should have, but when I made the statement of we're trying to look at how we repurpose other parts of our budget and how we can find efficiencies, when I took current year's budget and just roll it over with the contractual increases like you just mentioned, the teachers was one of them, but then you have the administrators, you have the non-union, we were over 5% was our original ask. Mm-hmm. And then it was about how do we repurpose everything that we have so I can get this down to a more reasonable number. And we were able to come down, I think we were at 4.63 at one point, and then it slowly creeped back up to 4.97.
Okay. One other question I had in kind of looking through the detail of the budget and looking at costs for the administrative salaries. I just want to ask about that for a second. I believe the total number is 6.8 8 million. Is that right?
Projected for administrative salaries is 6.4.
6.4. And as a percentage of the total ask, that's roughly 8% of the total. Does that seem right? How does that compare with other districts our size in terms of the cost of administration?
Right. So that's where you have your FTE report. I want to say in terms of our FTE report, we're at administratively, I think we're at about 44 administrators total across the district. I think there's a number of different factors of how we get to 44. You may have other districts that have less than that, but they also don't have the number of specialized programs that we have. The number of students that we're not outplacing as comparative to. There was a drastic shift in terms of how the administration was used at the high school. They have their assistant principals now. They no longer have deans. So, you know, they're, for lack of a better way of saying it, they're busting their butts to get everywhere. I can tell you we're short on administrators in particular areas. I think you heard Amanda already talk about curriculum. We have district-wide curriculum people that are trying to handle all the way from K-5 up to AP and ECE extension courses. There's only 4 of those. I think that there's room for at least 2 more there. As we compare to other districts of our size, you'll see a number of administrators that they will have that we do not have in terms of some of the additional work that we place right onto our assistant principals and our directors.
So that was going to be a question for later, but I'll ask it now.
Hang on, I'm just going to interject. Available on my favorite website, EdSite, there is an FTE report where you can see admins of every district. So I can share that link with you if that would be helpful, so you can actually see the numbers compared from district to district.
Okay. So you had talked about South Windsor, and we do love to compare ourselves to South Windsor a lot. And I think it's important just to comment that that's a very different mix of student population. I think if you were just asked some basic comparisons, do you have any idea which percentage of South Windsor students are on free or reduced lunch? Which percentage of South Windsor students have what's the IEPs? Thank you very much. I was looking for 3 letters. I didn't know which ones they were.
There's no acronyms in education.
Right. Just as comparison, some of that is related to student mix.
Yeah, I mean, for lack of a better way of saying it, there's a reason why South Windsor is in a completely different DIRG.
Yeah, okay.
Than
exactly.
Enfield. I mean,
but you did say that they were able to, one of the things they were able to save money, they were able to get some efficiencies by writing their own curriculum. Did you say that? Right.
I did.
So I guess my question is there ever a time, and it may not be in this budget, but where we might be able to get those kinds of efficiencies as a town with other towns where everybody's not creating the wheel themselves, but we can create curriculum or take curriculum in from other towns rather than having this overhead of our own that's trying to write the curriculum? Is that ever a possibility, and would that generate real savings for us? Potentially.
I mean, everything's always a possibility. We do have some of our directors that do curriculum writing for us. For example, our director of literacy, Nick Flynn, I just heard of some, it was literally this afternoon where I was talking to Michelle Middleton, and she was telling me about the course in terms of his curriculum writing. Oh, it was a rebalancing of the report card expectations. Mm-hmm. So we do that level of work in-house. But we did have the shift in terms of the state required reading program that we came into. So, you know, the curriculum getting adjusted to match that program is still a work in progress.
Okay. I think it is an area that's very expensive, and everybody is doing it themselves. And maybe as we talk about where we can get efficiencies down the road, I think this might be someplace that we should think about. You should think about. This is not we don't have line item veto of this budget, right? It's we're giving you X and you're spending it how you see. But I'm just, I think we all just would like to try to be as efficient as we can, as I know you would, and that might potentially be an area.
I'm going to give I don't generally do this. I'm going to give this much of the props to the State Department of Education because at least they've begun to lay out and roll out some model curriculum. So you at least have a starting point to go from.
I have some numbers for you. So it's 18% of South Windsor students are eligible for free or reduced lunch. 13% of students have an IEP.
Okay.
They do have a multilingual learner population, but that's
Yes.
their changing demographics
Okay.
there, but significantly different from us.
Yeah, and a completely different DERG than ours. Okay. The last thing, I just wanted to go back to this slide about the yearly FTEs, and we talked about the number of staff in 2017 versus the number of staff in this budget. Back in 2017, based on the previous slide, we had 5,211 students in 2017, but now we have 4,561. So I did some quick math, for every one staff, we have also lost 13.5 students, right? So there's a proportionality to this, right? So
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would also just add, though, the needs and demographic of our students have shifted over time as well. So
Right.
thinking about
And
what type of staff
And I
we
understand
require.
it's agnostic of the student need piece, but there is some expected decrease in staffing needs when you have a smaller student population. Right.
And that's one of the items that I've utilized a lot of the work from the pre-referendum committee because we did do multiple enrollment projections. So we did look at where will our enrollment appear to be going as part of that pre-ref work. And the high school is an area where they are projecting it to continue to decrease. However, they are projecting small increases in terms of the elementary levels. So it's going to provide us a couple of different challenges, one of which is going to be obviously elementary class sizes as you begin to get more and more kids. However, at the high school level, you may not need as many staff. However, at the same time, we have programs that we no longer can offer because we don't have enough staff to be able to offer them. So I think there's going to be some balance there. We may be able to bring some of the programming back that was previously cut. At the same time, determining what is the proper number of staff that's necessary.
Okay. I have two more questions because
I'm here all night.
I don't think anybody wants to be here all night, and I think people are getting tired of listening to me at this point. So, $600,000 for substitute teachers. When I saw that number, that seemed that was a big number for me. I was not expecting to see that. Can you just comment on that?
I wish people would come to work more often.
Okay.
That's not going to go over well with some of the ladies in the back of the room,
Yeah.
but no, we contract with Kelly Services
Yep.
for our teaching staff. I can tell you that Kelly Services upcharges in terms of what we have, but it's also about the ability to actually have the time to call the subs, to get the subs, to have the subs come in. We've begun to, me personally, if I have somebody who wants to, come in and sub, I put them on sort of a little independent contract because instead of us getting charged $180 through Kelly, I can only get charged $150. Yep. We just don't have the supervisory level to be able to take that on district-wide.
Okay.
So it is a necessity. And I am joking, Ms. Winans, about
No, I'm
the
sure.
fact
I know. So, last question. Would it ever, you mentioned the hockey team, and is it ever worth us considering to have our own hockey rink? Not just for the high school, but
There's a reason that they charge what they charge. That's how expensive it is to run that place.
Again, this is not,
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that this be dedicated to but is there an opportunity that if it were something that we controlled, would that help and potentially be
I would
beneficial from a
encourage you to
town
check
standpoint.
out how much that will cost.
Yeah, I would. My only response to that would be if it was money savings for districts, other districts would be doing it. I don't think that's
Never mind.
necessarily the case.
Councilor
And-
Crisati has just reminded me why I should not have even asked that question. So,
oh, but now he asked it, Bob. So I'd like to hear
fine.
your response.
He's
I
right.
I told them we're worried about a hockey rink. We can't even finish Powder Hollow for
So-
crying out loud.
So I just, that's it. And I just want to say thank you very much for the level of detail that you've given us and the work that you've all put into putting this budget together. So thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Mangini.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your time and all the hard work. All the staff is phenomenal. I do want to, again, compliment you on the layout. This is the first time, and I've been around the block a few times, that I have seen not only the detail, as Mayor Sakala alluded to, but also the way you have it structured in the little handout, if you will, so that we can easily go to it and not so much be in the weeds. The weeds are good too, but I want to be able to go in and cherry pick what I want. A couple of questions that I have on budget assumptions. You're referencing the ECS cost grant that we are not going to meet the need, and for the year 2027, we're budgeting for 70%, but our need is 91%. Why are we not attempting to go for what we're looking for?
So the excess cost grant is a dollar amount that is within the governor's budget for all districts. And what has happened is the amount of special education costs across the state, actually across the nation, has drastically increased. That dollar amount, there's not enough there for us to be able to receive the 91% reimbursement rate as we expect. There is a lot of conversations, and I know Mr. Santinella and I know Ms. Hall is well aware of all the conversations that are happening at the state level as part of the legislature in terms of what the full cost would be for that one line item within the governor's budget. But even with that, what I will tell you is the costs are going to continue to increase. The escalation of special education costs is insane. What it costs me to transport a special education student on a day-to-day basis, and then with one kid in a van, because we might only have one student that's going to that placement, is as much as what it's probably going to cost me for, 50 kids to ride a bus. You can't keep up. So I don't want to put in 91% and basically underfund the budget by hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we look at from year to year, what is the percentage that we've received back, and we take our best hypothesis as to what the following year will bring.
I just want to add, I want to be really cognizant of how we talk about our special ed students. I think it's really important that all of our students are learners here in Enfield, and though they might bring additional costs, they also bring us gifts as a district as far as how we teach and how we instruct. I also want to commend the district on the programming and supports that we are looking to build efficiencies in our district. So thinking about the pre-ref work and thinking about how to build out Eagle Academy and specialized programming in our school, more additional space. We can only do so much because of the constraints that we have as a district. But I think it's really important that we're mindful that these are students who have a right to education and deserve to be educated to have their needs met.
I especially talking about the special ed program, like the RISE program. I think that's dynamic. It's certainly going to benefit our students. And my final comment here, sustainability. Again, we do need to rebuild what we've destroyed. And I like to see your long-term goal laid out to continue to rebuild. We're not going to build it overnight. We know this. We need to prepare to go forward and to budget appropriately, but we've got to get back what we lost. And I'm happy to see that you're recognizing and laying out a plan to make that happen. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Mangini. Counselor Pisner, did you have anything? I don't want to forget you.
I'm good right now, Gina. Thank you for asking, but I may have something in another week or so. Let me get home and get my things together. Thanks.
Counselor Crusati.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for all the hard work that you've done. I've listened to your presentation when you presented it to the Board of Ed, and I listened to it again tonight, and it's a reflection of the hard work that you've been putting forth, you and your staff, and everybody on the Board of Ed, and to have it passed bipartisan, which was fantastic. We haven't seen that in quite some time, so I'm very happy about that. One thing that I will reiterate is that your budget and your presentation is slowly stabilizing the school system after the draconian cuts that took place over the past couple of years. I think the increased investment in special education is mandatory. I think it's your compliance with the legal mandates that are taking place here with the state of Connecticut. I hope that the legislators that are sitting here today, there's legislation out there, and I don't know if it's stalled or if it's a vote's coming up soon, but legislation to follow the funding of special ed students instead of the town having to take on that extra burden of cost if somebody moving in from, let's say, South Windsor to Enfield, or Enfield to that, keep the funding within that student, within that school year. I hope that would help out, moving forward, because I think that's pretty important. Your focus on academic support and equity, I think, is definitely well noted within your budget, and I'm very happy to see that. And to see that the transparency within the budget. We haven't seen this in quite some time. Thank you for that. And I think, that really spells out and answers a lot of people's questions as to the importance of that. And getting back to staff and administration, there's 44 administrators. As you well stated, there's the increased need for more administrators. You look at the high school, your assistant principals can't handle 1,500 students, all right? And they're working really, really hard in regard to that. Increase of staffing and programs. And once again, this is a start. This is a start to maintaining, to stabilize where we're going to be. And you have definitely started this process. Being in education over the past 40-something years and still being an educator here in town, I support everything that is presented, and I'm pretty happy with only your ask of a little under 5%. Could be a heck of a lot higher. Districts around the state of Connecticut are looking at deficits anywhere from $10 to $20 million. We're not looking at that at this point in time. All right, and we're looking at and doing the right things for the right purposes. And so we do have a nice financial plan moving forward, and I'm really happy about that. And so I will support everything moving forward. And just a quick little aside to hockey. Hockey is very expensive. Sports in general is very expensive, especially parents. We have an athletic fee that kids play. Remember, that fee for kids that have a reduced lunch, their athletic fee is also reduced. And so there's a scale that's there. So, you know, people aren't, you know, being discriminated against because of their needs, and we meet that. So I am happy about that. Hockey parents know what it takes. They should really be happy that, you know, they don't have any contest at 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, their games are at, you know, a little later on at night, and they spend a heck of a lot of money. Soccer parents, baseball parents, softball parents spend a lot of money for their kids to play in athletics. And, you know, if we have to increase fees for ice time, let it be. And that's just the way it is. And, but I'm going to stop there, but 2 thumbs up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Crissati. Councilor Hall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to first say thank you for this. This is a wonderful, detailed budget. And we did used to get these, and you may not remember, but we did get these very highly detailed budgets at one time. So I appreciate it. And we've been asking for them for many, many years from the board, and this is wonderful. I appreciate that. I'm going to save a lot of my budgetary questions to when we sit down and workshop this. But just looking at your FTEs, I mean, last year you went up 34 positions, and this year you're looking to go up another 12. So that's 46, if my math's right, over the last couple of years of added positions, correct?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then on your numbers, where we're comparing districts, I know the state does not add in the town's piece of a lot of what we cover. So my question to you, in your comparisons in your net expenditure per pupil, how do you take out all the pieces that the town does cover and other towns don't? For example, I know just looking at some of these towns, they have their own grounds division. They have their own, they pay their own security division. So there's a lot of different districts that have their own divisions, bless you, that I know are in some of these numbers. So my question is, how are you pulling all that out?
Yeah, so the net current expenditures is actually determined, yeah, there you are. It's actually based off of our financial report that we have to submit to the state at the end of each year. So part of that financial report does include the in-kind services. So those are the things that the town is paying for on our behalf. There will be some differences in terms of other districts. Like you said, they have their own grounds crew and things like that. But if we have a charge from the town and part of in-kind services, then it will get factored into that net current expenditure. So the big ones that have come up in the past are like the custodians and maintainers, the IT department. Those are factored into our EFS report. So it's not like those are missing, and our per pupil expenditure would be drastically different. But there is a major difference, right? SSOs, SROs. I'd have to look at Lorena in terms of everybody's included in the EFS.
Okay.
So it's apples to apples.
Okay, so when I look at all these other towns, I'm going to find, you know, buildings and grounds in those numbers, and I'm going to find building and grounds with whatever you've submitted to the state, along with all the IT pieces, insurance pieces, all that is going to be in our piece, and all these other towns, I'm going to find the exact same breakdown in what they submit.
I can't guarantee you're going to find the exact same breakdown,
Okay.
because it's all so what we do for in-kind services is we report, and I'm going to turn around and look at you, but we report within our EFS report what we are explained through John Wilcox's department in terms of what we need to place in part of in-kind services. So we receive the in-kind services amount from the town, and that's what gets submitted in. The
Okay.
reason I say you may not find apples to apples,
Right.
one finance director may not add something in or charge back to a district that another one. There's 166 municipalities, so
Right. So
it's
there could-
going to be hard to do.
Right.
But from our standpoint, I can tell you that the items that you were just talking about are something that Lorena sees us have to be included in our in-kind.
Okay, so this will be good questions through the mayor to Matt during budget. Matt, if we could get from John what exactly there are in-kind services that are reported to the school that they're reporting to SDE would be great. That'll be something I want to ask. I really appreciate the outline. I'm happy to hear that you're not budgeting at 91% for excess cost. I'm
But-
really happy that's
And I don't
not
want to
happening
interrupt you, but I
again.
have the number. I was able to find it. So this goes back to Cindy, the question about the 91 versus 70. This year alone, because we won't receive the 91%, $505,000 Enfield was shorted.
Yep,
What would you do with $500,000?
yep.
I wouldn't be coming to you with a 4.97% increase. I can tell you that.
Right. Well,
But I mean, that is a part of it. It's
a
the real
huge part of
numbers,
it.
and I can't short the staff and everybody else
right.
because we're not going to be in that situation again.
Right, that's good, because we don't want to be there again. And I do appreciate the fact that the state has been shorting the town in excess cost for many, many years, and we continually fight to add that back in. It was in our budget for the last 2 years to fully fund special education. So hopefully maybe it can get pushed again this year. It would be great if we get some support on that one. That's all my questions. I'll save the details for the budget negotiation. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you
you.
for your presentation.
Counselor Zanini?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few questions. So first, for your ed tech specialists, can you go over the supports that they're providing? I think you kind of briefly touched upon it. Are you also in that role going to be working on supports kind of for reaching out to multilingual learners and those families? Is that going to be transpiring? Like, what support staff do you have in the buildings to communicate with those families if the teachers aren't qualified to do so?
Yeah, that's where our TESOL teachers come in.
Okay.
So for multi-language learners, it will be all through our TESOL teachers. The ed tech communication specialist is about all of our parent square communications. It's about we are in a dire need for a drastic change and upgrade of our website. We have a lot of work to be done with that. In terms of our ed tech staff, you have our director of IT, you have our data and state reporting manager, and then you have, I'm going to do them by name because that's the way I'm going to remember them. You have Jeff, Corey, I think I'm done. Jen, and Jen Penquit. We have 5 total people in ed tech. One of them's our director of IT and innovation, who cannot get to any portion of the innovation standpoint. The other 2 folks are working on 4,600 students with iPads, all of the teachers that have iPads and MacBooks. I mean, they're just running ragged. Granted, the support from the town deals with the infrastructure, but that's a portion of it. So really, for our standpoint, the EdTech communication specialist is trying to pull some of the responsibilities off of our director of IT and have us be able to take the next steps to better communicate. And this goes back to that comment I made way back when about customer service. Like, we need to do a better job of being able to get the information over to people. Right now, we're just pushing parent squares like crazy. I have a wonderful executive assistant who has taken on a lot of that in terms of the newsletters and things of that nature, but we need to continue to get better in that area.
So in summary, it's essentially it's a public-facing role to support students and families from a messaging perspective, yes?
That's a great way of putting it.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Well, we should write that one down.
All right, thank you. And the second is to touch upon what the chairwoman as well as the deputy mayor had mentioned with the curriculum. So can you just give me an overview? Because I notice on page 3 here of this packet, it mentions the technological services for the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt reading program. So what out of that $600,000 is towards that program?
The Harcourt program, I think, is just shy of $200,000.
Okay. And from the state list of mandated programs specifically for phonics-based instruction, what room do we have to utilize resources from those programs to develop our own curriculum in-house? Or do we have to utilize the specific canned curriculum that they're designating that we use?
So the state provided a number of set assigned resources that you could go to, or you had to go through a very long, drawn-out process where you had to defend all of the different pieces of what you had put together as a complete literacy program. I can tell you that I was going through that process in my prior district, and the number of districts that were in continual battle back and forth because they weren't choosing the state-assigned programs was ongoing. We would not have the ability to go down that road.
Okay, that's...
And I will say, on behalf of the staff, and we do have some staff back there, I believe they will tell you that they are much happier with our new program than they were with our previous program. Is that correct? Sure. You want to go back to Lucy Clockins? No.
So,
I would just also add, since this was a comment that I made, I think there's a balance, right, of having some say over curriculum, but there's also a need for evidence-based, research-based curricular that we do purchase and use. And I think the state is hearing some of the needs that Mr. Santinello is bringing about. Many districts are doing this here and this there and are providing some state-issued curricular guidelines and model curricula. So hopefully that will also support some of that work moving forward.
yeah, because from my perspective, and I think a perspective that a lot of other educators would have, is that when we have those in-house curriculums, not only I think is more reflective of the district and our individual needs, but it comes at a cost savings if you have a few teachers that get together in the summer to work on those core curriculum, because I understand we can go out and buy core resources, but that's significantly cheaper than if we're using these prepackaged curriculums, which I don't think serve our students particularly well, and I also don't necessarily think they're that cost efficient. And I know that Enfield, for the past 2 decades, has probably been pretty prone to utilize that. Like in South Windsor, where I was student taught, they use open source curriculum for math, and it's pretty good curriculum. They have supplementary core resources, but they have a open source curriculum that doesn't cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to that point, is there any other line item in the budget that lists the other curriculum services that the school system purchases?
No, I'm trying to. You're going to the 600,000. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the proper line item.
Yep.
You never find it when you're looking for it.
Reading program is 197.
Yep. Right, so that's the primary one, right? Was the 5334. Reading program DW technical services. So that's your 197,000, which is for the HMH.
Yep.
That's the amount that's due in year 3. District-wide, in terms of other curriculum, there would be all software types of pieces.
So like
You're going to notice that in technology services software, in terms of our district-wide software.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm trying to see if I have anything else at the top of mind. Overall, I'm incredibly appreciative of the brevity of this budget and the depth. I think, as other people on the dais have stated, it's a fair budget. I don't think you're asking for a significant amount, and the bulk of it is things that we have already agreed upon with the teacher's contract and also maintaining the services that we already have with the expenses that are just going up due to the nature of the economy that we are currently in. It is my anticipation that I will support this budget, and I'm incredibly appreciative that you've brought it forth today. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Go ahead, Counselor Hall.
Just two more quick questions. I'm sorry, I forgot. Mr. Macchio, what do you have in your reserve funds, your carryover that the state allows you?
We had the full 2% from last year. So,
Which-
Lorena, that's 1.5 currently.
1.5 million. Okay.
But I do want to make note that we've been having conversation about ensuring that the insurance fund is fully funded, so a portion of that.
That's our current non-lapsing account is the 1.5 million.
Okay.
What we anticipate for the end of this school year
Yep.
is, I think, the question you maybe are looking for, is anticipated to be approximately 1 million, but we've had a lot of conversations through the insurance folks that there's a large portion of that is for our insurance funds. We were budgeted to utilize for benefits. There's a lot of open positions that we haven't been able to fill. So it was our goal to be sending that, still have to be whole, right? But I want to be able to send a check back to the town, to the insurance fund, to make sure that that insurance fund is properly funded,
Right.
for lack of a better way of saying it.
Right.
Because I think we know over a number of years that did not occur, and that fund slowly was depleted.
Okay. And then my second question, and this is an old term, so I'm sure you have new terminology for it. What we used to call a cafeteria fund. I guess you might refer to it as a student reserve fund or some other fund, but we used to refer to it as a cafeteria fund. It was off budget back then.
That's what I refer to as the district activity account.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. That's my only questions. Thank you.
And I would just, for the district activity account, because the question may be what is in that account, every single month at our finance meeting, we go over how much is in our district activity accounts, as well as our school activity accounts. Those are funds that are designated for students. The individual schools will do their own variety of fundraisings. They have a student activity account that they can utilize for any purchase that is on the benefit of kids. The district activity account has the revenue that comes in from other areas. We already talked about the transportation fee, the athletic fee. We talked about the technology fees. Those accumulate over time. And then I'm trying to get away from having to utilize those to offset our budget.
Okay, and that in that fund right now do you have a balance on that right now?
Yeah. And Lorena's going to look it up for you.
Thank you.
I will say that the district activity account is made up of 20 or 30 separate accounts.
And they're tied to like fundraising and stuff of clubs, so it's not just a free range money pit for us to use. Like I'll just use, for example, Best Buddies is doing a fundraiser right now. That's one of the accounts. That
Right.
money goes to Best Buddy programming. So it's
Right.
important that it's not just an account with money that we can utilize.
Right. It's
That district account also includes the tag account.
Also includes tag.
okay.
So the balance right now included all of that.
Separate tag, though, Lorena, because that can't be even considered part of it. So the tag account, what we're talking about, the Simkovitz Fund? So the
Talented and
the
gifted.
Simkovitz,
Talented and
right.
gifted,
The Simkovitz
okay.
family provided their endowment. It's sitting in an account solely for the use of talented and gifted.
Right. Okay.
Okay, right now we have 866,000.
866,000.
And the endowment, the tag fund, what's
I think
that?
off the top of my head, last time I remember was 3.6 million.
Okay. Thank you.
And there is a lot of caveats that go along with that endowment fund in terms of
What it can be
we
spent
can
on.
and cannot use and interest and that type of.
I remember.
But that's why we go over it every month.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Not to repeat everything, I don't know if you have any closing words
I
before.
was just going to share that I know you all will be doing deliberations and there might be more questions. I know Marie, Ms. Bisner had mentioned like time to kind of digest and look and kind of think. If there are questions or concerns that come up in deliberation, if you could just send those to Steve and I, and we will make sure that you get questions answered. I'd also encourage you to look at our budget website, and I can make sure you all have that link. There was a whole bunch of questions that came from the board around the budget that have already been answered. So you might want to start by looking at that document because there might be a chance that that question was already answered through our process.
Thank you very much. Not to repeat everything that everybody said, but you know, I appreciate this budget. It's not going to make everybody happy, right? Some people are going to want more and everything to be put back in that we lost. Some people are going to want less because they think it's too much of an increase. But no matter where you fall in the spectrum, I don't think many people can argue that it shows a strategic implementation and reintegration of some of the things to get us back to where we need to be, whether that's programming, staff, and everything else that we need. So no matter where somebody falls on that spectrum, whether they think it's too much or too little, it's showing that long-term approach, which I very much appreciate. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
All in
Second.
favor? All right, 10 in favor, none against. Thank you.